Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the REC podcast, brought to you by the REC Toycast. I'm your host, Roman Chavez, and with me, as always,
Eric Icarus.
And kiddos, today we have two special guests. Long-time viewer, listener, first-time participator.
Yeah.
Cameron Gabardi.
Woo!
And old friend of the show, David Williams.
Yeah.
All right, kids. What we want to talk about today, kind of continuing our horror month, is kind of our favorite horror films, and maybe a few that might be underrated.
Yeah.
As I kind of said in the previous shows, I'm not that big of a horror fan, but I found a couple that I think fit in the wheelhouse well and are kind of interesting and things that I haven't really seen before that don't really fall into the general motif. But Cam and Dave, as our guests, I'd really like to hear some films that you guys have to talk about. And Dave, I'd love to start with you. What is a favorite of yours that we didn't really talk about in the last episode?
Sure. It's first off, I just want to say it's really hard to pinpoint, what are your favorite horror films, because there's so many of them. There's so many good ones out there. So I'm kind of going off of what I grew up on.
Okay.
As a way to guide me. And one film that I really enjoyed growing up, and I still enjoy to this day, is a film called Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And this was made in the 80s, and it was an interesting take on the genre. It first introduced the idea of the zombies eating brains.
Oh, really?
Right. And the story is very simple, and it works very well. It starts out at this supply company that supplies body parts, cadavers, medical supplies, and what have you. And this guy is training a new clerk, and and through the course of that training, the guy, the seasoned employee, tells him about the movie that George Romero made, Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And saying that was based on a true story.
Huh.
And, of course, the kid didn't believe him, but he essentially said, well, they embellished, they changed it a little bit, but it actually happened, that there was this chemical company that came up with this chemical that reanimated corpses, and there was a leak, and the military had to clean it up and resolve the problem. And they were supposed to ship it to this different location to keep it for safekeeping. Well, there was a mess up with the shipment, and so they sent these dead corpses in these canisters to this medical supply company. And the medical supply company, for whatever reason, didn't notify the military about it. They just kept it for years in their cellar, in their basement. And so the seasoned employee wants to show off for some reason and says, hey, you want to go see them? Right? Well, obviously the clerk is like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And so they go downstairs and they look at it. They open up the canister. There's a sort of a window that you can look through if you just lift open the top. And they see this dead body, and it's encased in this canister, and there's gas in there. And the senior employee, basically hits the canister thinking that it's sturdy, and it's not, and it starts to leak out the gas. And it goes all throughout the medical supply warehouse, and it gets into all the dead animals, the dead.
Oh, wow. Oh, so it's not just humans in this version.
It reanimates anything that's dead.
Oh, wow.
And how they did it was beautiful, right? There's this shot of butterflies. You know how people will collect butterflies? Well, what they did, and I found this out because I listened to the extra features, the commentary, and it was very simple. They took a fan, and they off camera they blew it towards the butterflies, and they started.
Oh, that's fun.
Started moving, and it worked well.
What a cool way to show that like, hey, dead things are coming back to life.
Exactly.
Very simply.
Yeah.
Well, what causes all the mess after the fact is that the gas gets to this cadaver, and this cadaver comes back to life. And they call up the boss. The boss comes, berates them over being stupid and letting this happen. And then they proceed to figure out how to actually solve the problem. And so they go back to Night of the Living Dead, and in that movie, the way to kill the zombie is to kill the brain. They subdue the cadaver and they try to kill the brain, and it doesn't work.
Oh.
The zombies do not die in this one. And so their best plan that they came up with was to essentially burn the zombie completely, because they were next to a funeral home. The funeral home had a crematorium. And so they go to the crematorium. They convince this other guy who's running the crematorium to do it.
I've seen this one. I know exactly what you're talking about now.
And they think it solves the problem, but the gas from burning the cadaver gets into the atmosphere, and it starts to rain. And there's a graveyard, of course, near the at this funeral home, and it gets into the soil, and it starts reanimating all these other zombies.
So for you then, this one being kind of the thought of like the brains being eaten and all that, it kind of sounds like it's setting up a lot of motifs that we know for the modern zombie, setting them on fire. Are they fast or are they slow?
Oh, they're fast.
So I don't remember them being fast. I think I've seen this movie, but I don't remember them being fast.
And I had to rewatch it just a week ago or so, because sometimes you forget about just how fast they are.
Yeah.
Because there's this motif where zombies are just kind of slow and stupid.
Yeah. Right.
And one of the great remakes, Dawn of the Dead, kind of reintroduced this concept that they're fast.
Yeah.
And they're gonna catch you, right? Well, in this one, they're fast and they're smart too.
Is this one of those people who are like at the hospital and is trying to lure them back, or is that a different?
No, that's Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
Okay.
Which is terrible.
I think we're gonna,
why have I seen that?
I think we're gonna have to have a zombie-centric one in the future.
Right.
But that's interesting. So this motif of they're fast. Do they talk?
Oh, they do.
Oh, wow.
And so so there was a lot of build up to when you actually see the zombies doing what they do. The build up is very interesting, because when they go to the funeral home to try and cremate this cadaver, they talk to the guy who's embalming another cadaver. And he talks about rigor mortis, and how it starts in the brain and it spreads out, and it really sets up the motivation as to why the zombies are wanting to eat your brain. Once they capture a live zombie, because they do capture a live zombie, they start asking you questions, because it's sentient. It can talk.
I don't like that.
and the zombie explains that they have to eat brains because it's painful to be dead. They can feel themselves rotting, and it's painful to them. And the only thing that gives them a relief is to basically eat on the living, on their brain. And it starts with very much the process of decomposing with that rigor mortis that starts in the brain, spreads throughout your entire body, and then you start to just decompose. And these zombies feel that pain.
Yeah.
And so it lays that rule within that universe, and it was just done very well. And it still holds up. I recommend anyone that wants to watch a zombie movie, watch that one. Don't watch the sequel. The sequel is silly. First one is good.
Does Romero have anything to do with this?
No,
Okay.
he does not. In fact, if I remember from the commentary, there was a dispute.
Lawsuit?
There might have been a lawsuit, but there was definitely a dispute over it. That's why they had to call it Return of the Living Dead instead of Night of the Living Dead, and they also changed it from the zombies from George Romero's, because they were just cannibals in the first black and white one. This, they specifically went for the brains. They didn't do anything else.
Nice. Yeah, I do remember this movie, and I remember beats of this one. But it's definitely, all of these ones we've been talking about, and making me want to go back and rewatch. I did rewatch one this week that I really did want to talk about, and I assume maybe one or both of you guys, Eric or Cam, might chime in on this, but 13 Ghosts.
Hey!
13 Ghosts.
Yeah, dude.
Not the original,
No.
the one from the 60s, but the one from 2001. It was directed by Steve Beck and written by this guy, Rob White. But the funny thing is that an uncredited writer on it is James Gunn.
Yep.
Which
Really?
is
Yep.
which is pretty cool. So I assume he probably came up with a piece of it or was a script doctor. I didn't want to read too far into it. I just like the idea that he kind of peppered some stuff in there, and it's just a. So you've seen it?
Oh, yeah,
Has everybody seen
absolutely.
it here?
Yep.
All right. Very interesting story that brings in this notion of the Black Zodiac.
Yeah.
This kind of haunted astrology. What's the word I'm looking for? Astrology sign type
Yeah.
thing or whatever, and it's this idea of these ghosts that can come together and kind of create this spell, it takes place in modern time, and there's actually 12 on the zodiac itself. They have one that's called the firstborn son, the torso, the bound woman, the withered lover, the torn prince, the angry princess, the pilgrimess, the great child, the dire mother, the hammer, and then the two craziest ones in the whole movie are the jackal and the juggernaut.
Yeah.
And these these names are associated with other people who have passed away. So many different people can be the jackal or the juggernaut. They just have to hit a certain criteria and what they are and what they can represent. All of the people in the zodiac are people who have died tragically, and it really just kind of gave this interesting motif of black magic that I don't think we ever see explored enough in the realm of movies. We get dark wizards, we get light wizards, but we never get why. Harry Potter somewhat touches on it with what the people will do. I think we're going to get some better stuff in the Marvel Doctor Strange movies, but I feel like something like Lord of the Rings, they don't really differentiate the magic. We just know that there's gray wizards and white wizards and whatever, and dark wizards obviously, but never really what makes them what.
Yeah.
So I thought that this was a cool idea, but it was not fleshed out to my liking.
You know what was upsetting about it was we got the really cool, aesthetically pleasing ghosts in there. They all look so awesome, dude. But
Terrifying.
yeah, but so much backstory went into these ghosts that if you get the Blu-ray or DVD,
Right.
you go to the special features.
It
There's
drew
a
you in.
huge story on these people. Someone had to type that out and flesh out a story for all these ghosts.
Yep.
So if you want to watch this movie, get the Blu-ray or DVD and go read up on all these zodiac signs, because there was a lot of work that went into it. Not just the look, but the story behind them. And
Right.
yeah,
Their spells, the quick gist of the film, because I'd love for you to watch it if you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it, I hope that it makes you want to watch it again, is this family, a father, a daughter, and a son. They kind of live in this crap hole apartment. The wife and mother had died recently, within 6 months, and so they're kind of this family's putting their own life back together.
Right.
For some reason, they have a maid. It's
yeah,
weird.
Rod Digga.
Rod Digga from the Flip Mode Squad. Busta Rhymes, shout out. And this lawyer comes up and tells Tony Shalhoub is the father, and he's like, "Hey, your uncle Cyrus died." And he was Tony Shalhoub's eccentric uncle that apparently spent the family fortune.
Right.
Some very Scooby-Doo stuff.
Who played was it F. Murray Abraham?
F. Murray Abraham himself. That's right. He plays Uncle Cyrus. And Cyrus leaves his house basically to Tony Shalhoub. They need it. They're very excited. They get there. It's this, like I said, Scooby-Doo-like house. It's glass. It has all these weird writing on it, which we find out are spells. And F. Murray Abraham, Uncle Cyrus, had been collecting these spirits to create this machine. And it's supposed to be a machine that can help you see the future.
Right.
But you need the 12 ghosts.
Yeah.
So they keep mentioning a 13th ghost, which plays into the story later. We will talk spoilers on here. I guess I should have said a spoiler
we don't get too
warning.
hardcore into this one.
I'm not going to get too hardcore into any of the ones that I want to talk about because I want you guys to watch it if you're unfamiliar. But there's this floated idea of the 13 ghosts and what might the 13 ghosts do to this machine.
Right.
It's got some very great visuals for being a 2001 horror film.
Yeah.
They still pretty much hold up. You can only see the ghosts if you have special glasses on.
Right.
And Matthew Lillard plays a psychic.
Speaking of Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that. He's a psychic who helped Cyrus track these spirits down. All the while, there's a second team that is trying to free spirits because people are obviously capturing spirits.
Right, but these
world.
are very violent ghosts.
Yes.
Why would you want to put them back out in the wild? I feel like Uncle Cyrus is doing a service.
And it's a really interesting idea of what was Cyrus's plan? How does the family work into it? What do these ghosts have to do with anything? What do the spells mean? It's just this very, very smart ghost story, and basically it's a haunted house.
Yeah.
It's a haunted house story, and it works really well, and it still holds up. Matthew
cool.
Lillard's acting is bad, and
But he's supposed to be eccentric, and
Yeah.
I think it helps the performance sometimes.
It does. I dig him. He's super fun in there, and there's a lot of really cool connections, and just a fun ghost movie. That's something that I really enjoyed.
Okay, real quick, who was your favorite ghost?
My favorite ghost was probably, I think everybody's were kind of the Jackal and the Juggernaut, but I really think that the Hammer was interesting, and the Angry Princess.
That was my favorite. Was the Angry Princess?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Just so disturbing to look at.
Very disturbing. She was clearly a beautiful woman in life, and she's nude in the whole movie. And it's cool when you put the glasses on. There's a really excellent shot of like the glasses being like on the bathroom counter,
Yeah.
and the camera kind of like looking through them, and everything looks fine in this bathroom. But as the camera kind of pans through the lens, you see that there's blood on the wall, and there's like "I'm sorry" written on the wall and stuff like that. And it's kind of like when these ghosts inhabit an area, it kind of reflects what their inner torment.
Sure.
And it was just a very...
Well, you know what? Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no,
it's
I was
just a
just
very
saying,
interesting and provocative way to show what these people went through.
Oh, big time. It was just cool about her story was that she was obsessed with beauty, so she got plastic surgery over and over and over. So I just thought it was... Well, knowing that and rewatching the movie, it makes it so much more disturbing.
Watching all of those things about the history of these specific 12 ghosts is fascinating. It makes the movie
That's
much
what drew
better.
me in too. Yeah, it was the lore. The big thing is the lore with
Yes.
me, and that movie was rich of it.
Which is always
really was.
It's always a problem with me in horror films because I feel like they really sidestep a lot of
They
lore,
do.
or they just give you this big sugar cube of lore and there's nothing else to it. It's just what else?
Leaves you asking more questions.
Yeah, definitely.
To which they rarely ever answer.
Right.
In our previous, I think, episode 62, where Dave and Eric teach me about horror films, we were talking about how a lot of these horror movies seem to be rewritten on the fly. It almost seems like they're writing them as they go, or, hey, one was cool, we like this, this, and this, but we're going to do two this way, because this, and this could be cooler.
That's the thing with the genre. I think you could tell when there's thought and process in every horror movie. You know, there's ones you could tell are just written on the fly for, let's get some money, I think, or, maybe, I don't know. There's some that just don't add up, but there's also... I think some that are written that, they do, man. They're perfect, and you could tell that they put time into the story. It doesn't leave you asking questions. It's more like I like a movie when you go home, you're thinking about it.
Yes, sure.
You know what I mean? It's still in the back of your mind. I mean, one of my favorites is Sinister, and that's a big reason for it is because right when I got home after that movie, I'm looking up if the character is based off real events or, things like that. And I think if a scary movie could get you to think that, it's pretty
Who was in Sinister?
Yeah, I should remember that one.
It was Ethan Hawke.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
Ethan Hawke, and it was the pagan demigod, which is some cool lore between that too. So
totally.
it kind of, once again, got me in with the lore with that. Yeah, man, Ethan Hawke I thought was great in it, and it almost had an indie movie feel.
Oh, totally.
Definitely that eerie music that plays through it the whole
big time.
And I know I've asked everyone that's seen that movie. There's one specific scene in there, and I'm sure you know about it, but just the music alone makes you jump.
Oh yeah.
It'll be completely quiet, and then the music will start and just hit. And I mean, I remember I had popcorn and I just spilled it everywhere.
It's funny. I usually
crazy.
hate how music is a substitute for genuine scares, but
Yeah.
I feel like in that movie, it adds
worked.
to it. Adds to the atmosphere.
It was something genuine about it. It's something about that movie.
If you're using music to create atmosphere,
Yes.
you're doing something right. If you're just doing a quick violin scrape to get you to jump in it, it's BS.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I dislike horror movies, is I like a genuine scare, I don't like a jump scare.
Right. Yeah, the movie made me really think, man. I went back. Unfortunately, he is not a real pagan demigod. Or whatever,
Right.
But I had to look it up and see what he was all about. I mean, the movie was really making me think about it. And, the idea behind it is he, I think, takes the children's souls and he, basically he takes the children's souls and he feeds off those in his realm.
Right.
But he basically gets them to kill the parents first.
Oh.
And all of this is film.
Okay, I'm remembering this.
So,
now.
Ethan Hawke is a writer. He comes in as a writer, and, he's trying to write, and he's a horror, or he's a investigative novelist, for murders,
true crime novelist,
novel. And he comes upon this box of tapes in this house. So for a writer, that's perfect.
Totally.
And it's old film, it's on the bit, and he's got a thing and a reel, and basically just doing it, man. And he finds out that the family before that was murdered in that house.
Yep.
So he's starting to write his book, and he's conflicted because he's starting to see things, but this is perfect writing material for him,
So he's like, is he kind of like allowing his family like things to happen so that
they're kind of the ones that are giving him the voice of reason. Like, hey, there's things, and I think he lets it draw on a lot more, just to try to get some content. But I think it eventually does end up, kind of breaking him too.
Oh,
and the book just goes on the back burner and it goes to hell. But
oh man, good pick, man.
It is a great movie, man. Sinister 2 though didn't really pull me in as much. You know, it didn't. Sinister 1 had an original thing to it, and I think Sinister 2 it just didn't hold me.
Is it the same creature from the first film?
It is the same creature, and maybe it's just that originality of the kids being controlled by this thing and killing the parents. And there's one really, really awesome scene that I haven't really seen in any other movie, and there might be out there, I'm not sure, but there's a scene where Ethan Hawke is hearing things. We all hear creaks in the house.
Sure.
We chalk it up pipe, something like that, and but the way they shoot this in this scene was just beautiful in the fact that, he's hearing those things, little creaks and everything, but we as the viewers are seeing the ghosts making these creaks. He can't see them, Ethan Hawke, but us as the viewers see what's creating that creak. And the ghosts are moving eerily and slow, and, you see him kind of dart across the room, and he hears the creak, and, he looks, but nothing there. I just thought that was really cool.
It's chilling. It's so chilling.
Right,
man.
the whole time, the first time I'm watching it, I'm just like, kind of mouth drops, like, oh, this is, like, because usually us as the viewers are waiting for the scare.
Oh, totally.
But the whole time we're seeing it there. The ghosts are right there, and it kind of goes back to Roman saying they're not relying on the jump scares. They're showing us there what's creating it. And that gave me chills.
Big time, man.
That was a very cool scene.
I haven't seen that one, and I actually thought the trailer looked really good. But when it's a horror movie, honestly, I'm just like, I'll see if somebody else likes it, and if it's somebody I know that likes it that isn't a big horror buff, I'll usually check it out.
Honestly, the guy looks cool too. I mean, what drew me in was I'm a Slipknot fan, so the guy looks like one of the guitarists from there. I mean, he's got this wicked looking mask. He's got long straight hair. Looks like he just walked out of a metal concert. But it's eerie, man. There's some scenes in there I think that a lot of people would appreciate. In the horror film genre, I think it's just a great all-around horror film.
Oh man, it's good. It's like sort of horror meets suspense, just slammed into each other.
The first time watching is not knowing what's going on, and all those found footages, man, he finds every one of those gets you on the edge of your seat. And
I love
whoever's seen it knows what I'm talking about. Like, and they're just shot in almost like an old '70s style like camera, and it's just. It's eerie.
So eerie.
Very eerie.
Well, Eric's got an interesting one for us, and it's a movie that I thoroughly enjoy. I think it's under the radar for most like modern horror fans. But what you got for us?
Well, I'm gonna bring it. It's Tales from the Hood.
Oh God, yeah.
It's sort of like a spoof or a take rather on Tales from the Crypt.
Right.
It's like an anthology series basically. It's Clarence Williams III.
Yeah.
He plays a mortician, and these gang members show up to pick up the drug. This mortician found drugs, and these gang members go there to collect the drugs from him, buy it off of him or whatever. So they get in there, and he takes them through a tour of the mortuary, showing them dead bodies and such, and giving them little backstories to the bodies and stuff. And we get 4 different stories, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one is it's called Rogue Cop something or other. It's basically these cops beat to death this civil rights activist and end up killing him, and there was another rookie cop there that saw the whole thing, didn't stop it, so he starts hearing voices. And you kind of see that he's bringing these cops back to the grave of this man that they murdered. And what did you think of that scene? I thought it was pretty intense for what it was. I mean,
I like the idea because they they kill this politician, and they stage it to make it look like this guy was into drugs.
Yeah.
And they really, not only do they kill him, but they smear his name.
Basically.
And then the rookie, who kind of helps him cover it up, he can't live with the guilt.
Yeah.
And about a year later, after the death, on the anniversary of the death, he starts having these dreams. And the dead politician is communicating to him, and he's like, you should have stood up for me. He's like, he tells him, hey, bring them to me. Like, bring them to me for justice. So he kind of gets all the cops together, takes them to the grave, and, craziness ensues. It's a fascinating story, and really if you can't tell, and you may not be able to tell from the name, the film is heavily, like, it's basically an African American.
It's an urban Tales from the Crypt.
Yes, urban Tales from the Crypt, and it's so clever. What's the did you like that story? Dave, you've watched it. Ken, you have not.
I did, and despite the fact what those cops did to the guy, they deserved deserved everything they got. But when that one cop went to the grave and started peeing,
Yeah.
Oh wow.
yeah, like I was like, yeah, this guy and his psychotic partners need to die
Get
soon.
the justice.
And they got it. They got it. Because he even comes out of the grave and he's like this zombified.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He's supernatural, obviously, but
Yeah.
he's like, he wrecks them. And it needed to happen.
What's cool is, like, I think at the end of that, they make it lead you to believe that maybe the rookie went crazy and killed these cops.
Yeah, like
Not the
that
ghost didn't do it, but the rookie did it.
Yeah, it's
He's
very.
seen it.
Yeah, it's a pretty clever movie.
But
Then
he just couldn't live with it.
Then we go into the child abuse part of the story.
And honestly, when I saw the trailer for this for this anthology for the movie, I thought it was going to be a comedy.
Yeah, me too.
And it ended up being it has some funny parts.
Sure.
But like this motif here.
Yeah, it stars somebody who we think as a comedian, David Allen Greer.
Yeah.
He plays a wife beater, a child abuser, and this kid starts at a new school. He comes into school with bruises and bumps on him, and the teachers keep asking him, "Who's doing this to you?" He's like, "Oh, it's the monster." And the teachers are like, "What? Monster? There's no such thing as monsters." Come to find out, one of the teachers wants to figure out what's going on because he keeps coming in with bruises. But let me backtrack a minute. One of the kids in his class tells him to draw a picture of what's hurting him and to either smash it or burn it, and it'll go away. So cut to that evening, the teacher comes over to see what's going on. The mother answers. She's like, "Oh, come on in, and let's talk about it." And she's like, "Oh, my son's just clumsy." Enter David Allen Greer.
Yeah.
He's lit. He's angry. Tells the teacher to leave. He ends up laying down this really uncomfortable beatdown on his wife and stepson.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And it's pretty brutal to watch for a good 5 minutes. And teacher comes back in to try and save the day. He gets knocked out.
Yeah. He gets pretty beat up brutally too.
Yeah, and then luckily the child gets a picture of the monster that he drew and starts to fold it in half, and David Allen Greer's limbs start to go all over the place, and the effects look pretty decent.
Yeah.
I just recently watched
Very
it.
practical.
Yeah.
Very practical.
Oh, big time. And they end up killing the monster.
Huh.
And then we go into everyone's probably favorite, the doll one.
Yes, the doll one is the most interesting.
Yeah, it's this politician who is based off of David Duke. He was
That's
like,
right.
Yeah.
I think he's related to Casey Duke.
Shout out to Casey Dude. That is not a true statement, guys.
No, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
But his name is Duke in the movie, and he's this politician that was in the KKK.
Yeah, Southern. Yeah.
He's living in this old plantation house, and he's trying to get elected for mayor, governor, and this crazy old man's telling him to leave because this old woman that lived at the plantation put the souls of all these dead slaves into these dolls. And there's a big mural on the wall with the woman sewing the dolls. Anyway, he doesn't heed the warning. Weird stuff's happening in the house. The dolls finally start popping out of the painting.
Weird stuff is happening, and then he'll walk by the mural, and a doll will be missing from the painting.
Exactly.
And then and then these dolls, they are, because they don't like him there. So they
for who he is.
For who he is, yeah. Not because he's white, but because he's a former racist former KKK member living in a plantation house, making it his like campaign headquarters. The fight with the dolls is pretty funny. It's pretty funny, but then it ends pretty gross.
Yep.
And I think we can leave it at that.
Yeah, big time.
Because I don't know a lot of people who've watched this movie.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Then we go into the last story of the movie, and it's kind of hard to explain. It stars this gang member named Crazy K, and he is almost murdered by a rival gang, and he survives. He's saved by the police. He's put in prison. This woman scientist comes in and tells him, "Hey, if I can rehabilitate you, you'll be set free." So it's kind of like a Clockwork Orange, but it's like a Glockwork Orange.
Oh my god. Yes. Anyway, that's it. We can stop recording right now.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
But
the end of it.
he goes on this weird experiment with this woman. Turns out, I don't even want to give it away.
Yeah. Don't.
Yeah, it's just he just goes in for some behavior modification, and it just doesn't. It just ends how you don't think it's going to end.
Yes.
And I don't even want to give away the mortician story.
I don't. Yeah. The Mortician
just watch
story
this
is very
movie. It's
interesting.
amazing.
If you-
Great practical effects.
If you like horror films, or if you just like, if you want to see something you really haven't seen before.
Yeah.
I've never seen another movie like it.
Nope. They
It's
have done a sequel, and it's garbage.
Oh, I didn't know that, and I'm upset about that because Tales from the Hood is totally just like an amazing
out of
film.
all of those like anthology movies, Tales from the Crypt and Creep Night or Creep Show, Tales from the Dark Side, this one is way above those.
Yeah.
I think it's better than Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Like the actual show, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Dave, give me another one. Give me something else that you're that you maybe that is underrated or just a favorite of yours.
Right. I think a movie that I would point to that's underrated is a film starring Brittany Snow, and it's called Would You Rather.
Yeah.
Would you rather? Okay.
And she stars as a gal who's taking care of her younger brother who needs medical treatment for cancer. I think it's leukemia or something like that. And she can't afford to pay, to keep doing the treatment for him. And so she gets connected to this rich, crazy guy who offers to pay the bills and even find, I believe, a bone marrow donor. And she's desperate, so she does it, right? And she goes to this dinner party. And at this dinner party, this guy is offering her as well as everyone else at the dinner party money to participate in not only the dinner party itself, but afterward the parlor games that he and again they don't know what's going on. It's so I don't know if anyone really starts to suspect what's happening, because I think during the dinner party there's this one guy, he offers like $50,000 to just drink this whole decanter full of scotch or something.
Oh Jesus!
And he does it because he's like, I think he's a slush, he's an alcoholic anyway, so he's like, why not? And he does it, and he gets $50,000, and then right as the dinner party ends, I think he offers everyone a chance to walk away. And this guy, he just made $50,000, and he actually considers it. I think if I remember correctly, he kind of gets up to leave because he's already got money and he's drunk, and that's a win, I guess. But he decides to sit down because the prospect of making more money is intriguing. And if you don't leave, then you are forced to stay. There's no leaving.
Yeah. After the freebie, you don't get any more.
Right. And everyone stays naturally, and they decide to start the parlor games, and it's this sick, sadistic, series of would you rather type games. And just to give you an example of what it would be, this is more towards the end of it, but you have a choice between submerging yourself in water, for an extended period of time, or you could, one of the characters was given the choice of having a firecracker put in their hand, or one of the other participants was offered the choice of picking a random card, and on that card it said, you gotta slice your eye. Right. So what's interesting about it? I mean, it could have been better, but I thought it was a pretty solid flick. What was interesting to me about it was I was thinking the whole time, what would I do in a scenario like this? Would I have
Definitely.
would I have the guts to like do what is necessary to survive? Because if you don't do any of that stuff, they're gonna kill you.
Yeah.
So you have to do it. And the other thing in that movie is he also plays off the other participants, because you have a choice to do something to yourself or someone else.
So would you rather?
And so there are some people that are selfless and do something to themselves, and there are others that are not.
And it works against you to be selfless.
Right. Right. It does not work out when you're trying to be noble in that scenario. I don't want to give away the ending, but
it's great.
It's a solid film. I recommend people
not
watch
familiar
it.
with this movie.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's good. And Brittany Snow does a great job.
Who is Brittany Snow?
She was in Pitch Perfect. She was the
She's blonde.
she was the redhead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She was of like the original like
Bella's.
Okay. All right.
Now she played it really good. Like you could tell there was some genuine fear in those eyes.
There's fear in my eyes. Like,
man.
Like, especially when the guy's like putting I mean, it's in the poster, so I don't feel like I'm giving anything away.
Yeah.
Like there is a razor blade going towards someone's pupil, and I'm freaking out the whole time. I'm like, oh my god, what would I do? I might want to die before I cut my eye.
Yeah. It's really, like you said, solid movie. I think it could have maybe been a little bit better, but I've never seen a movie like it.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything like that.
And that's what I liked about it, is the originality. There's a lot of horror films that, they're not terribly original. They kind of just play off certain themes that we're all familiar with, but this is one that I thought was original. It made me really think, what would I do in that scenario? And I was just terrified for the participants.
Oh yeah.
Because I envisioned myself sitting in that situation, and I would be just terrified out of my mind. I mean, I would, instinctually, I hope I would fight back against the people, but that's the thing. One of the goons that was enforcing the parlor game was, I think he was like a former like British agent, intelligence agent, who was like trained into.
Oh yeah, he mess you up.
Right, like you're playing the game or you're dying.
Yeah.
So
the guy they had to play the eccentric millionaire was just amazing.
Right.
Like I forgot his name obviously, and it sucks, but he played it with just enough creepiness and humor.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he
was a funny
He was
guy.
charismatic almost.
He was like, I kind of enjoyed him being a crazy eccentric rich guy. Like, I don't know how to describe it, like, because he was kind of funny. Like, just this maniac guy. That I think, Roman, you see a lot of characters like that in other films and of course comics that are just kind of just funny.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not as funny as like Negan.
Yeah.
But he's definitely on that spectrum.
Okay.
He's like, he's just.
You love to hate him.
I love to hate him. Definitely, because I think anyone that forces people to hurt or maim each other is
for their own amusement. Yeah, just to pass the time, basically.
Like it's hard to describe him. You got to watch him because there's like a dark.
Well, I feel
humor
like he almost feel like what he's doing is altruistic too.
Yeah.
Like he's got this whole like I'm doing this to better you people vibe going for him. Like it's
very Jigsaw.
Not really.
Okay.
In a way,
basically, he's like, if you do this, you'll get money. For what you need.
Yeah.
I'm helping you.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it
I'm
is.
doing this for you.
Yes.
Right. I get entertained and you get money. Right.
Well, all right. I'm gonna have to check out that one too. I've got quite the list for
It's so good.
for our 52
I'm gonna have to watch
Film Fest next year.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I invited Cameron over is because Cam and his mother, because he's such a sweet boy, every year on Halloween they have a tradition that they just rent horror movies, ones that they've already seen, and then try to get some new ones in there.
Right.
And so I was very curious to see, what movies got Cam going when it comes to horror. So you gave us Sinister. Give me another one.
Man, The Ring.
The Ring.
That was a big one, just kind of like David was saying, generational. I was right at that age when that came out, that it was a big movie in that horror franchise.
Yeah.
So that's one, too, that, my mom really enjoys. So that's one that's broken out every year.
Yeah.
Another one is,
Ring You.
Yeah, that's a remake, right?
It's, Ring, and then we do, I can't think of it, man.
Are you talking about The Grudge?
The Grudge.
There you go.
There it is. Yeah, The Grudge.
You gotta speak Gabardi. All right?
Yeah.
I speak fluent Gabardi.
The Grudge is the one that we, and that's one of her favorites.
Yeah.
Just that girl creeps her out, the noises she makes, things like that.
Yeah.
That got me for a while, and then after watching it doesn't scare me anymore, but it's got more of a feeling to it. It's a Halloween October
man.
feel. You break out that movie. It's not particularly going to scare me, but it gives this good October vibes, those type of movies. The first time I did watch The Ring, and when she does come out of the well, that did scare me. That was I haven't seen that yet, so that was a big one for me growing up, was The Ring. That was terrifying to me. Something coming out of the TV, the whole time you're thinking it's not coming. You're like, is this really? No. Yep. Okay, it's happening. It's that feeling. It scared me.
Did you ever see a movie called Fear.com?
Oh man, it was the worst.
I did not.
Fear.com is hilarious and terrible. Fear.com came out months before The Ring.
Okay.
And it was literally like somebody had watched The Ring or Ring You and was like, oh, I gotta make this real quick before anybody else does it. And it was a similar thing where you went to a website, right?
Yeah, it was a website.
And then you died X amount of days later. But it was so terrible. It was so bad.
I got the story, but I got the scoop behind this.
Give me the scoop.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's so bad, and I love how bad it is. I don't want to know anything else.
Is it Steven Dorff?
Steven Dorff. I don't remember.
Oh no, he was in Blade. I always forget his name.
Yeah, that's Steven Dorff.
Is that he was the cop in that.
Okay.
movie.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah.
But anyway, it turns out that the studio that bought the rights to Ring You beat out that studio that made Fear.com. So Fear.com was like, oh, well, let's just make this first so they don't have a chance.
Yeah.
But they had a problem was their movie was awful.
Yeah, it was so
And they
bad.
almost didn't release it because it was that bad. The studio's like, we can't put this out. But then someone had seen a screener for The Ring and were like, oh, well, let's put it out anyway, because people were like, oh, well, they stole it from us, and people will come watch Fear.com.
And that affected me when I watched The Ring, because I saw Fear.com, and when The Ring was coming out, I was like, this is just the same. I literally just watched this movie a few months ago, but Ring was far superior.
It's way better.
It's way better. And I don't even like The Ring. I don't think it's any good. And it's way better than
you like The Ring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Gore Verbinski, I think, directed that. That's great.
I like The Grudge more than I like The Ring.
Oh, that's debatable. Which one do you like better?
I would have to say The Ring.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The first couple of times, it's just The Grudge kind of lost me after watching it so many years.
Yeah.
I still like it, but it doesn't have a scare appeal. Where The Ring, still the way she moves.
Yep.
Something about
it's almost like you're
movements.
trying to figure out how she got in there.
Right.
You know,
you
like
the
want to go
whole
back and
mystery
rewatch
of it,
that.
I know the next couple of them they make.
Yeah.
I think they're Ring 3 and whatnot. They kind of explain that, but
don't you forget Rings? Okay?
Yeah, and the Rings. But I think the first Ring, would scare me over The Grudge still first, so I'd have to go with The Ring.
Yeah.
But I think story-wise, I think they're both great. I think Grudge,
I'm with you.
Kind of that just ghostly. I don't know, women ghosts terrifying. It's something about, the ghosts and the females, man, they stay terrifying.
No woman scorn, baby.
That's it, man.
Did anybody see the original ones? Because I never saw Ring You or the original Grudge.
I've seen Ring You, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's on par?
It's creepier, it's grosser.
Okay.
It's like, in Japanese horror, they do a lot of gross stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen this movie called The Apartment?
I was getting ready to do The Audition. Is that the one you mean?
Oh, that's what I mean.
Okay.
The Audition.
That was going to be my underrated one.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about that, because that's gross.
Yeah, that's a perfect lead into this movie.
Yeah, I didn't even know you were going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's odd.
The
Audition. Yep.
Okay, for some reason
The
I thought it was
Audition.
The Apartment.
Yep. And it's actually not a remake. It's actually just pulled from Japan. It's a 1999 Japan horror movie, and don't even know if you could really call it a horror movie in a sense. It basically starts off with this bachelor who his friend's like, hey, you've got to get back out there and meet some women. So he puts him on this show to meet women, and it actually starts off like a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It's almost like Harry Met Sally, almost like the vibe of it. It's almost just carefree and whimsical, and then he picks this woman. He's like, oh, I like this woman from the videotapes. Calls her on the phone, and she's just sitting there in the dark, staring at the phone.
Oh.
And then it rings, and then all of a sudden this bag behind her moves. There's a person in this burlap bag behind her, and he's like, hey, let's go on a date. And she's like, oh, of course. And then I don't want to give too much of it away, but they end up dating. He starts to see something's off about her, investigates it. Oh man, the end scene to this movie is nauseating.
I can
It's
tell
one of the
you.
few movies that actually made me sick.
I can tell
legit.
you that there is a scene in which she throws up, or
Mhm, yep.
she throws up into a bowl, and
It feeds it to the guy in the bag.
That's what you have to eat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's more of a
It's one of those,
disturbing.
I got you.
Yeah, it's not like a ghost or
No,
monster.
which is scarier.
Yes, it's
Oh,
like
yeah,
this
it
could
can
be a
be.
thing.
Yes, it
you know.
is, yeah.
Yeah, that was literally. It wasn't what I was going to talk about, but like
That's
I just
cool.
want to talk about
Good lead-in.
Japanese horror.
Good lead-in.
Is that they just do weird stuff. They do gross stuff. Even Korean horror.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
We have all seen some of those Korean horror movies, and they're very fascinating. They're very interesting. A movie that a lot of people haven't watched, and then they're even shocked when I tell them who co-wrote it and directed it is The Frighteners.
Oh, yes.
The Frighteners.
Yes, mhm.
This is less of a horror movie again, but it does have scary stuff about it.
It's in the vein of Ghostbusters.
It is.
You know what I mean?
It is.
Yeah.
I think it's a darker Ghostbusters.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Michael J. Fox, directed by Peter Jackson and co-written by Peter Jackson. Came out in '96. A lot of people I talked to, they've never seen it. Have you ever seen Frighteners, Cam?
I have not.
Man, you would love this movie. It's
You
awesome.
would, dude.
It's awesome. It's Michael J. Fox.
Jake Busey.
Jake Busey. That's right. Shout out to Jake Busey. And it's just an interesting movie about a guy who Michael J. Fox plays an ex-architect who sustains a brain injury and then can now see ghosts. Him and his wife are in a car accident. She dies in the car accident, and then because of that, he's able to see. He literally sees death reaching into her chest, in her dying, and then so he kind of like makes that into a business to where he actually has some like ghost sidekicks that like will faux haunt a place, and then he kind of goes in there with his tools and and like exorcises the demons, charges good money for it. It's very Ghostbusters in that sense.
That's cool.
But then people that he is saving, like if there's a couple, one of them starts to die.
Oh wow.
And so it's starting to kind of look like Michael J. Fox may be killing these people, and he was a suspect in his wife's death, even though they were in that car accident. Like they say that her heart, there was like something wrong with her heart. And remember, he saw death reaching in there, grabbing her heart. It's ripe with twists and turns. It has so many elements of whodunit, so much mystery. It has a lot of quirkiness.
Oh, yeah.
The FBI agent and stuff like that.
That's
And
my favorite part.
yeah, he is so funny. He's like, my body's a roadmap of pain.
He doesn't say it like
Yeah.
that, no.
But it's a fascinating movie, and it's ghost and monster and horror and comedy and a little bit of love, which is what this world needs now.
Yeah, love
you know?
with dead people.
Yeah,
That's what we need right now.
Loving dead people. The judge.
Oh,
Judge is
yeah,
cool.
yeah, he's great.
One of the ghosts that he has like this like 60s Afro guy.
Yeah,
He's got
funny.
this like 40s college guy, and then he's got this old gunslinger sheriff.
Yeah.
The judge, and it's just funny, and it's creepy, and like the flashback scenes later.
Yep.
I don't want to spoil that stuff because I really want Cam to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
But if you've not seen The Frighteners, it is completely up your alley. Let's kind of rapid fire a couple. If you've got another one or two, just like something that maybe our listeners should listen to or to watch.
Descent.
Oh,
Go watch
Descent.
The Descent.
Descent's
yeah.
good.
It's amazing.
Girl power too.
Oh, yeah.
I dig that.
Rec. RAC, right?
Yeah. For the podcast.
Yeah, that one. No, you remember that movie? It's sort of like the found footage stuff.
Yeah.
Zombie
Yep.
in the apartment where they have.
I never saw it.
Oh, it's good. That was. I was frightened.
Ah,
and I think
good.
it was because it was a found footage type.
I love found footage
No,
stuff.
you'd like
I
it.
think we're gonna have to dedicate a found footage episode.
I
as
agree
well.
with you, man.
I think we'll have to have one of those. Wreck. Okay. Gambino.
I'd say The Last Shift. It was a movie on Netflix.
I don't see this one.
You know, and with a lot of those, I kind of go in those and you don't know what it's going to be, those
Right.
Netflix ones, and this one I'm pulling out a hat because it surprised me. It was actually really good. I'd say The Last Shift. It's about a female cop who is watching the jailhouse for the last time. They got a new
Oh, okay.
jailhouse.
Right.
So she is in the old one for
Uh-huh.
the last shift on that jailhouse. So I thought that was kind of
That's-
cool.
yeah,
a good
okay.
idea, and you kind of go into it, you're like, most horror movies you have just regular civilians
Yeah.
dealing with ghosts and stuff. With this one, you're like, okay, a cop. Let's see how they deal with ghostly encounters, things like that. And I think it's just a great one. It's a terrifying movie. If it's still on Netflix, not sure, check it out.
Oh, yeah,
It's
I'm
called
gonna
The
have to check
Last
that
Shift.
out, dude.
It's surprised me.
That sounds cool, man.
I gotta say, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Hey!
One of my all-time favorite movies. I think it's scarier for like a 13, 14-year-old kid than it is for an adult, but it has a lot of practical effects. Demon Knights of the Devil, hunting for this key that has Christ's blood in it. Very, very fun movie. Very MTV. Pantera has
Cemetery
Gates on there. It's such a very 90s. It's probably the peak of what a good 90s horror film could be.
And Billy Zane.
And Billy freaking Zane.
Kills
Billy
it. Slays in
Zane.
that movie, man.
Yeah, you gotta watch out. This kid's limber. He's too limber. Okay, Cameron, that's our show for today, man. I want to thank you, and I want to thank Dave for joining us on this episode.
Oh, Dave's on.
And it's somewhat tradition where we talk about something that we learned. And I'm going to start with you, Eric. What'd you learn today on the show?
I think I like having guests.
I love having guests.
Guests on here.
Yeah, it's kind of makes it a little easier too.
Yes,
You
it does.
know. As much as I like to hear my own voice, sometimes I need a break. Sometimes I need a break. Big Dave.
I don't know if I learned anything new, but Frighteners is a great movie, and I need some more Jake Busey in my life.
I do too. Teeth and all.
That's right.
Mr. Gabardi.
Honestly, I was going to say I need to watch Frighteners. That's
You do.
what I have learned. I
You
mean,
do.
I've heard great things about it. Multiple people telling me. And I even remember as a kid renting movies at Blockbuster, seeing that
Oh,
distinctive
the
cover.
cover
Yes.
art's amazing, isn't it? The
And
holograph.
that, every time he brings up that movie, it kind of reminds me of
Me
that,
too.
that kid
It's the first
phase
thing I
going to
see.
Blockbuster. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I need to watch that movie.
I want
So
you to
it's
know that watching that movie is like seeing that poster. It's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And I learned, and Dave touched on it in the middle of the show, that these were all movies that are very, very original.
Yep.
We've got a couple remakes in there, a couple things, people biting on other people's stuff. But for the most part, these are all very interesting movies, and I think movies that we all rewatch more than just that one time.
Yeah.
And I also learned, and Cameron, you should know this too, that if you like it, you must put a ring on it. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's show. If you like what we're doing, please hit the subscribe button, give us a like, leave us a comment. We really want to know what you guys think. What are some horror films that you are into? What are some ones that we missed? Or what are just some cheesy ones that you guys like? Screw you, horror should be nothing but gore and funny stuff and boobs. And let me know, because I'd love to watch something like that. Check us out on Instagram at REC Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Roman REC Podcast.
No, don't follow me.
Don't follow Eric. He does not want you to know. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I have been your host, Roman Chavez.
Still Eric Icarus.
And guys, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah.
For Cameron and Dave, we will catch you next time.